Well, I'm joined now by Andi Bottner, who's a senior advisor at Independent Women's Forum and also a friend of Brett Kavanaugh. Hello to you, Andi Bottner. Thanks very much indeed for being with us this afternoon here on Sky News. As a friend of Brett Kavanaugh, how did you feel watching him last week before the Senate Judiciary Committee?
Well, thank you for having me this afternoon. It was very difficult to know Brett and his family, as my family has for the last several years. It was very difficult to watch him go through what he did last Thursday. But I will say that he has tremendous strength and integrity. And I think that this situation, this very political, chaotic circus that has engulfed our country the last couple weeks should come to a close on Saturday afternoon. And we're very confident that Judge Kavanaugh will become a Supreme Court justice.
Do you think that he is fit to become a Supreme Court justice? Has he displayed the right qualities? I mean, many have criticised his demeanour before the Judiciary Committee last week for being over-emotional. He interrupted senators. He turned questions about drinking back onto one of the senators. He talked about revenge on the behalf of the Clintons. Was that the behaviour befitting of a man due to be appointed to such a position?
Well, I would say this. Brett he's a human being. He's a son. He's a husband. He's a father. And I think what has been lodged, the allegations lodged against him have done great damage trying to tear down his reputation, his very integrity. And I think what we saw last Thursday was a human being, the personal, coming out from behind that justice or that judge robe. Brett is someone, he's had a very impressive, professional, even keel, professional career over the last 20-some years. And I think the last 2 weeks just brought him to a point where he was fighting for his name, for his family.
Yeah, and I'm interested, Andi, that you're describing him there as being professional and on an even keel because his temperament has been brought into question, hasn't it? And we've had more than 2,400 law professors from across the political spectrum, and I suppose that's important because this has become very partisan, but saying that the lack of judicial temperament that he displayed would have been disqualifying for any court, let alone the highest in the land.
Well, I disagree with that. I think that this has been a very calculated political campaign from the beginning of July. And I think that all of these allegations were brought to bring the pressure increasingly up on Brett. And I think last Thursday when he spoke, he defended himself as a man, a husband, a father, and a son. And frankly, I just find it quite ridiculous that you've got senators sitting there passing judgment, because to me, that was just the height of hypocrisy. We have senators in there talking about drinking at age 16 or 17. They should be ashamed. It was really quite an embarrassing moment, I think, for many in the Senate and certainly for those of us in the United States watching our elected leaders behave.
What about the pressure also then on Christine Blasey Ford being put before that committee?
Yeah, well, that to me is very heartbreaking. I think, as I've said before, that Christine Blasey Ford, any survivor of sexual assault, domestic violence, needs to be heard. But just because an allegation is made, they don't automatically need to be believed. There still needs to be evidence, fact-checking, and opinions drawn, conclusions made based on our system of due process, based on rational thinking. And I find it very insulting as a woman to be told, well, you have to believe a survivor because she's a survivor or says she is, and she's a woman. I still am able to make my own judgments. And in this case, when weighing the weight of the evidence, according to what Dr. Ford brought up, there's just not credible corroboration. I just don't believe her.
Some, though, have questioned the veracity of the FBI investigation, though, because it has been so short and because it has been so restricted.
Well, I just find that laughable as well, because as we see here, it's a calculated campaign. This was something the Democrats were demanding a week ago. We need an FBI investigation. Well, they got it. They got it, and they don't like the results. So now it's no surprise. Well, it wasn't long enough. It wasn't thorough enough. This is not something that is surprising to those of us here. Nothing would be good enough, because at the end of the day, what they want is to stop Judge Kavanaugh for gaining that seat on the Supreme Court. And I just hope, and I'm very confident now, that that will not happen. We believe that he will be seated and he will be a justice of the United States Supreme Court. I just hope for Brett and his family, he is able to wake up after the end of this weekend on the sunrise side of the mountain.